on paper. Yeah, there are definitely gameplay elements that you can get out of there if you want to make it more like a traditional game. For example, the three of the main characters start trading heroin. There was Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars had a drug dealing system in it, which was game rated MA in Australia. So you can make sections very similar to that. There's business sim sections in it. One of the characters opens a business with the profits made from this drug trade. That could very easily be just, what do we got? Railway Tycoon? You can make it as fun as that if you wanted. Who knows? And then, disaster strikes, your friends start getting arrested, the drug supply starts running out, you're all getting very desperate, the game starts behaving very erratically, your characters start, having withdrawals from drugs, starts getting very hard to control them, and then you all decide, let's go on a road trip to try and source drugs. Just as one of them gets an infected arm and needs it amputated, just to make him control it even harder. It's not exactly a traditional game ending, but as far as pushing the boundaries of the medium goes, well, it's already been proven as artistically successful as a novel, it's been proven as artistically successful as a movie, and I'm sure that as an interactive game, it would also be proven of artistic merit. Now, not only that, those of you who've seen the movie, how many people have you thought, I'm never doing drugs after watching that? Well, I'm pretty sure that in an interactive experience, it will have an even bigger effect, even bigger anti-drug message than the scare tactics the Rudd government are currently using with their anti-drug campaigns. But of course, because of the laws, a game that has artistic merit like that would be refused classification. Now, of course, that is only an adaptation of other artistically proven media to the games medium. Now, can you imagine what would happen if we were given the freedom to start creating stuff specifically for interactive media? I've got some really good ideas I'd like to try out. But, as I pointed out, I just can't at the moment. Now, the introduction of an R18 rating is not a new debate. It has been around since classifications for video games were introduced. Over the past few years, though, there has been one man who has obviously stood in the way of the introduction of an R18 rating. And we all know the name, Michael Atkinson, Attorney General for South Australia. Yeah. Apparently, because of him, that the R18 rating is being blocked at the moment. Now, Atkinson repeatedly expresses issues with the availability of adult material in the homes where children live. Now, he seems to have restricted his focus squarely to games. Now, I know many of you would have grown up around the same time I have. In our era, unlike Atkinson's era when he grew up, we had a home video market. We had video games. These things did not exist back in Atkinson's day. Now, as you may know, your parents would have kept R and X rated movies about the house. And certainly, I couldn't find them. Yeah, it's very easy for parents to restrict access to this material to their children. But Atkinson doesn't seem to think that, parents should be raising the children. He wants the government to tell you how to raise your children and how you should act as a result. And that's just wrong, don't you think? Isn't it a parent's responsibility to raise their kids? Another point Atkinson regularly brings up is that it will be harmful to vulnerable adults. Now, he seems to define vulnerable adults as those with, mental disability and mental illness and all that. He's actually already done a fair bit of work against this in his home state. In 2004, he introduced a bill to Parliament, the Criminal Law Consolidation Criminal Neglect Amendment Bill. Now, this law criminalised neglect of vulnerable adults and children by their carers and guardians. So, we've got these laws here that he's introduced that recognise people other people are responsible for children and vulnerable adults, but he still thinks that that's not enough. It's like he doesn't trust his own laws to do the job. He'd much rather dictate what we're allowed to watch and what everybody else is allowed to watch instead. Alright. Now, the majority of us, though, however, don't fall into this category. Certainly, children are not a majority in this country, nor are the vulnerable adults we seek to protect. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody here, just like I do, knows that pressing A to fire a gun in a video game does not actually commit a real-world act of violence. It just changes the voltage of a few chips and changes what you see on the screen. There's nothing that you've done in the real world that's against the law. It's purely for entertainment purposes. Now, we can distinguish fantasy from reality, and it's about time we stop being treated as if we can't. Now, Atkinson has also started making false claims about video games that he has an issue with. I'm sure you've all heard about the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 resubmission to the classification board that he wishes to do. Now, Atkinson has been quoted as saying, in this game, you score points for massacring civilians, and that it glorifies terrorism. I've played this game extensively, and I didn't score a single point for killing a civilian. I didn't score a single achievement or score a single trophy for killing a civilian. And in fact, I found it interesting because as you start the mission, the leader of the terrorist cell says, "Follow my lead," and then you do. It seems a lot like the Milgram experiment from the 1960s, which was an experiment to show that people would take orders if given, no matter how objectionable they are. Seems like a bit of a growth of the medium, if you ask me, if that kind of stuff's been put in games. Yeah. I'd also like to know how he thinks it glorifies terrorism, as if one act in the game causes an invasion of America, and every other character you play in this game spends the entire time cleaning up the mess associated with it. You see very real effects of terrorism. How is it glorifying it? You're busy cleaning it up. Now, we got a quote here from Atkinson, actually. Expecting game designers to be responsible by not glorifying terrorism will always lead to disappointment. I got a new quote for you. Expecting politicians to be responsible by not telling outright lies will always lead to disappointment. Now, Mike Atkinson's actually in a bit of trouble down in here. He's currently implicated in something called the St. Clair land swap. Now, this is something that hasn't really gotten national media attention, but needless to say, it's not good publicity for him at the moment, which can't translate into good votes for him in the upcoming election that he's running. Now, this means very soon we may have a new South Australian Attorney General. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Someone who's not in the way of dropping an R rating. Unfortunately, if you believe Atkinson, there are in fact other Attorneys General that are against this R rating that don't wish to make themselves known. They're politicians. Shouldn't they make their view known? They're public servants. We're paying them to hear this stuff. And they're just sitting back going, we'll let you do it, mate. Just come out with it. Any Attorneys General hearing about this event, I urge you to make your views known on the matter so that everybody here doesn't get their hopes up for a rational rating system when Atkinson is finally removed from office.